Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking off a fender just to see what's underneath it and how it all goes together, and to get it off the car so I can sand it and paint the inside and prep, sand, prime, and spray paint the inside, and also to get more access to the suspension and such right here. So in order to take off the fender on this Cordoba, we have to take off the lower rocker panel, or the lower door sill molding, which is all along here. I already did that because I got a little ahead of myself, but I want to show you how it goes together. The other side here, the other side is still on. So we look under here, we can see that the rocker panel, or the lower rocker trim, extends all the way the whole length of the car. The whole thing has to come off for the fenders to come off. Underneath are little Phillips screws, tiny little sheet metal screws. Down here we can see some attachment nuts for the fenders. And if you look closely in here, there are Phillips head screws all along underneath the door, so you have to open up the door and get those. Once you get all these screws off, and do it by hand, don't use power tools, because you're liable to strip out the head of the screw or break the screw, and then you're in a world of hurt, or at least a world of annoyance. Once you get the screws off, the whole rocker panel on the back side, this is the top, is hooked over. And I've taken the front ones off already, but you see these plastic clips? These are installed, and the rollover lip hooks over the top. So once the screws are out, you just lift the whole thing up and off. And then these are installed by inserting them over and sliding them over onto these little tabs that are installed on the rear quarter panel and on the front fender. So now that rocker panel is off, I will start taking off this fender. It's just bolts along the top, some nuts underneath, and a cat to get out of the way. Alright, let's take her off. And in case you didn't notice already, I've taken off the front grille fascia, I've taken off the front bumper, and I've taken off the front bumper supports, the crash shock absorbers. There are two crash shock absorbers that go right there and right there. And they're filled with fluid, much like a regular shock absorber, and once the bumper hits something, or something hits the bumper, they compress and bounce back. I have no idea if they still work, because this car is about 42 years old or so, and so now they're just kind of to hold up the bumper. Who knows? If this thing gets into an accident, well, look at the thing. It will probably destroy whatever hits it and kill me in the process. One thing I forgot about is the antenna mount, which is right here. Normally you need a special socket with prongs that go into these notches. I don't have that socket. That's at work, because I used to have to remove antenna bases. Since I switched jobs to a job that doesn't really do a lot of that anymore, it's just sitting at work, so of course I need it here, and it's not here. But what you can do is use needle nose pliers if you're very careful, and go in there and slowly rotate it around. Or you can figure something out. You could use channel locks and very gently turn it, but that generally mars up the circumference with plier teeth marks. The best way to do it is the socket, but I think we'll just use needle nose and see what happens. Worst comes to worst, I can maybe wrap a rag around channel locks and just start it and then undo it by hand. Look over. I got some needle nose. Gonna go in like a surgeon here. Careful, 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 careful. And oh, there it comes. And just kind of gingerly unscrew. All right, we can do it by hand now. There it goes. I got the fender off. It's back here in my backyard paint and body shop. So I'm going to take off the emblem and the nameplate and that little trim piece and then that little trim piece, and then I'm going to sand the whole thing. Probably not the bare metal, but definitely get the sheen off, prep it, prime the outside, do the same to the back, and then I'm going to spray paint the backside with Rust-Oleum gloss, maybe 2 coats, and then throw some clear on it, and then the front I'll leave primed for later painting. And here's what it looks like with the fender off. I've never seen it with the fender off. I've seen other cars with the fenders off, but never this one. There's a lot of dirt that collects here underneath the mounts and right up and inside the door. A lot of dirt and tree debris and all that. You know, we'll clean that out, sand everything down, and give it a nice coat of primer, and then figure out how to get the suspension down without taking the whole thing apart. I'd rather just drop the whole thing as a piece and not have to worry about taking it apart yet. So I'll have to disconnect the steering gear, at least the steering shaft up at the bulkhead, and then more than likely take the torsion bars out, because those are mounted all the way at the back into the frame via a crossover mount, which also supports the transmission. If it didn't support the transmission, I could drop the whole thing as a unit and I just have 2 torsion bars going straight back, and then the whole K-member drop down and I could roll it out of the way. But of course that's not how it works, but that's okay. While we have everything apart, I want to show you these. These are called speed nuts, also called J nuts by some folks. I always call them speed nuts. They go in an area where there's already a hole. You can see that they are one piece of metal, and then focus underneath. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? There you are. Underneath they have a formed hole with threads in them. These are meant for sheet metal. You can remove them if you look right in there. Let's see if I can get something that points better. Right there, that little tab, you can use needle nose pliers or a pocket screwdriver or a pick, and you go in there, grip it, pull it up, and kind of wiggle it out. Come on, there you go. Wiggle it out, and then you can get it off. Keep these. You can buy these at Ace Hardware. Focus. You can buy these at Ace Hardware or other automotive body shops, but if you keep them, then you don't have to worry about buying them again. So throw them in a bag, label the bag, passenger fender, driver fender, front clip, whatever. If you want to clean them up, you can put them on a wire wheel or ultrasonic cleaner or something, and then when you're done, slip them right back into place. And you know they're going to work because they worked for 40 years on your car, holding in the bolts that you hopefully bagged in another bag saying passenger fender. Alright, I got all the bolts off of this section of the body, off this section of the fender support, cleaned it off a little bit, and since I'm an impatient guy and I like to get into my projects, I started stripping off the paint with this 3M Industrial Scotch-Brite. Now this is probably fine, I don't know, This is my first time ever painting a car. As I mentioned, I'm having some problems with the wheel liners, getting rid of orange peel, getting rid of problems with the clear coat. I'm just learning as I'm going along. So, doing this, like I mentioned, I'm an impatient guy. So, while this is probably good enough, I got my dual action sander. Put some 100 grit on it. Stay. And went to town. Got this section down to bare metal. I know this is good enough to paint. All I have to do is clean it with some soap and water and maybe some solvent, let it dry, and then I can put primer all on top of that. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to clean it off. I'm going to squirt primer just on this section because I don't want this section to rust overnight, even though it is about 86, 90 degrees today in California, very dry. I know that overnight this is going to develop some surface rust, or at least over the weekend it's going to get some surface rust. So I'm going to clean that off and squirt some spray primer on it. It's now about 6:15 and I've got dinner cooking for the next 45 minutes, so I figured I would come out here and start working on the inside of the fender I took off. You can see here that I've been sanding with my dual action. I downgraded to 60 grit, the lowest grit I have that is hook and loop that fits on my sander, and I've just been going to town. It's hard for me to get in these compound curves. You know, it kind of goes like this, and it's hard for me to get in there. I can only get in here, but I can definitely get over here, maybe over here, and all along this. So I'll do those with the sander, and the rest I will scuff up by hand. I'm gonna try to get down to bare metal, but you know, this is the backside of the fender, so long as it's scuffed up, I guess it works. I'm just doing this because it's faster. All right. So here's the difference. Oh, screw it. I'll just pick this up. So here's the difference after worn. I mean, it's still rough-ish. It'd probably work with a lot of downward pressure. This is a lot rougher. You can see that it's been worn away. It probably worked fine for wood, but that's a lot rougher. So I like that a lot better. I'm just gonna switch to this. It's now 2 days later, and instead of using the sanding disc and the dual action sander, I'm gonna use my drill and wire wheel to get into these corners and the curves and all that, and we'll see how well it works. The dual action sander was just taking a little bit too long for some of these things. So, and I've moved it into the garage, and I'll be working in the shade for now. Okay, I have stripped off a lot of the paint. I've sanded it down. I've taken the 3M Scotch Brite and a 60 grit sanding pad to it. I've got it kind of smooth. I removed a lot of the grime, most of the grime, and now I'm hanging it up from my garage door. I've cleaned it off a little bit with some degreaser. I'm gonna give it one more final little pass down with acetone, and then I'm gonna spray it with primer. It is now after I primed and painted the inside of the Fender. I primed it with one coat of Rust-Oleum Automotive Primer, and then let it dry, and then sprayed on this stuff, Ultra Cover Paint and Primer. I don't think I need the actual double the paint and the primer, so I went and got just regular spray paint, black spray paint, because I'm going to go over primer, and I'll go from there. It looks okay, I guess. It doesn't have a lot of gloss in a lot of spots, but there are some spots where I did heavy spray, and that came out nice and glossy. This is not so heavy spray, so I don't know if it's interacting with the primer. I don't know what I need to do. But on the next one, I'm gonna prime. I'm gonna sand it a little bit, and then I will use the just regular paint and not the paint and primer in one, and see how that goes. So, but since this is again the inside, you're not going to see it. I was only painting it just for one, practice, and two, to protect the inside, make it kind of a uniform black. This isn't too bad, especially since the wheel liner is going to go up on top of there. This part will never ever be seen, more than likely. So I'm not worried about it. Okay, so I was totally wrong. It wasn't a interaction with the paint and the primer or anything like that. I just wasn't spraying enough. So I went over to Home Depot and I got this sucker. This is the Rust-Oleum really big version, 24 ounce, so it's double the size, and it's really cool because it has this fan tip on it, and it sprays like this instead of kind of in a spot. So this is a little bit more expensive. It's, if you buy two of the 12 ounce, it's still $1 more to buy one of these. So this is $9, and the other, if you buy two of the other ones, it's $8. But I don't know, maybe it's worth it for the tip and the ease of spray. We'll find out. But this looks a lot better now that I gave it another coat. So I'm just going to let this dry, and I'm going to call it done.